So the whole trip spanned about 5 days, and we started off in St. George. And then from St. George, we headed northeast and continued to see all the sights up to Moab. Our first night, we actually stayed on the rim of the Grand Canyon. Really nice campsite, looking out over the Grand Canyon. You got to watch the helicopters come in, dropping equipment off for the rafters. The next day, we headed up to Kanab, and from Kanab, we headed over to Cottonwood Road. Then from Cottonwood Road, we jumped back on the freeway and headed over to Escalante. Now, the Escalante, the Route 12, very scenic, very beautiful. And from there, we headed over to Capitol Reef, which is a gorgeous geologic, I don't want to call it a phenomenon, but geologic area. And then from Capitol Reef, we gassed up and headed over to Factory Butte through the Wild Horse Wilderness into Goblin Valley. From there, jumped on the freeway and then headed the back way into Arches through Salt Valley Road. Drove around Arches National Park, headed over, checked out Gemini Bridges, all very scenic. We also did the Top of the World Jeep Trail, where that's about as far as I made it, and you'll learn more in the video about what happened there. So after that, we did Hurrah Pass, Chicken Corners, very scenic. Chicken Corners kind of a Jeep trail, and then we took Schaefer's Trail into the White Rim. And for me, the White Rim Trail was really the diamond in the crown, I guess. And then the last day we did Schaefer Trail by the salt ponds, and then I headed home. So the overall trip was amazing. Like, we, in the 5 or 6 days that we were out there, hit all the highlights. My suggestion to you, though, is if you're planning a trip to Moab, I would pick a couple things that you really want to see and see those, right? Explore the trails, go for hikes, go rock hounding, go petroglyph hunting, go looking for old immigrant wagon tracks, right? Get your old-timey maps and really invest in it, right? Additionally, if you have any slant for geology, oh my gosh, Moab is the place to go, right? That portion of southern Utah. Coming from California and kind of the West Coast, I have never experienced anything like it. I have so much fallen in love with the terrain and the geology out in southern Moab. I just absolutely loved it. And if you're going out there, get yourself even just a basic book that talks about the different layers and what, this was the Jurassic, this was the Cretaceous, right? And what might be in those layers, because it really opens up your trip as you kind of submerge yourself a little bit into the history of the area. For almost all the trails that are non-pavement, I would recommend at a minimum 4-wheel drive. I would recommend at a minimum that you have food and water and spare tires and tools and anything that you would need to be self-sufficient. These trails, for the most part, are pretty remote. They may or may not be traveled at the time of year that you're going. I know if you're going in the early spring, that weather conditions can change, that it could get potentially very dangerous. If you're going during monsoon season, things could also, as far as the weather, change. Important to be situationally aware. So very much like my other videos talking about going to Death Valley, being prepared to go out to Black Rock, the same applies here. Now, having done this kind of grand tour of southern Utah, or specifically around the Moab area, I can say there are 2 areas that I am planning to go back to. Take a week, spend a couple days really exploring one, and then 2 or 3 more days exploring the other. And that's going to be Capitol Reef and the White Rim Trail. Now, Capitol Reef, primarily because of it's just geologically a rich area. Now, Capitol Reef is really cool because not only is the geology really contrasted, right? You have the white sedimentary layers and then these really rich purple and pink layers. You've got these coxcombs all over the place. And this layering is really created by what's called the waterfold pocket. You can definitely go online, Google it, get yourself a book, and really enjoy the scenery out there. There's tons of area for dispersed camping, lots of little side trails to go explore. If you're lucky, you might come across an ancient oyster bed. Just really, really cool kind of rock hounding, things like that. So Capitol Reef, definitely a go-to. Just an extraordinary bit of geologic history with a lot of kind of cool little side trails interdispersed. The other trail that I really enjoyed as part of the trip was the White Rim Trail. This is an amazing trail. We unfortunately did not get to do the full loop because there was flooding at one of the river crossings and the park system had closed it. So we only, it was kind of like we got to go in and drive a bit and hike around and then come back out. And I would, if you're going to do the White Rim and really enjoy it, I would recommend, plan 3 days, right? Get yourself a couple campsites. Go do little side hikes down the canyon, explore the petrified sand dunes. There's tons of little animal tracks and all kinds of cool things out there, right? And in that way, you really get to kind of submerge yourself in the environment and really enjoy it. One of the things, because this trip was like, it felt like a long time, like we had a week, right? But because we hit so many locations, it never really kind of felt like you really got to like immerse yourself in a place, right? I'm a rambler, right? I like to drive out to some place, pull over, I see something kind of cool or unusual, and I want to go check it out, right? Whether it's a rock formation or a cool little creek or, some cool plants or whatever, right? So really be gracious with yourself and give yourself the time to really enjoy it, right? And when we go back, I really kind of want to go solo, because when you're with a group, sometimes you're kind of tethered to that group's pace, and it can make it difficult when you're driving and watching the road and looking for conditions to really enjoy the scenery and enjoy the vistas. So if you're going out there, I definitely recommend Capitol Reef, definitely recommend the White Rim Trail, and really give yourself the time to enjoy it. Yeah, maybe you want to go see arches and Gemini bridges, and yeah, you want to go hit some of the Jeep trails. And if all you want to do is drive, then that's going to be your jam, right? And you're going to, have a great time. But like me, if you want to like get out and hike around and look at rocks and, take pictures of flowers and, look at animal tracks and things like that, then really give yourself the time to enjoy it. Okay, so as I was telling you, we did hit a couple Jeep trails, Chicken Corners, Raw Pass, which, are totally doable, and, no big dramas there. But we did decide to do Top of the World Trail, and it's a real bumpy, ledgy trail. Alice, she's got 33s. I do have a lift. She's got all her, Under Armour, that kind of stuff. So I wasn't overtly concerned, though the trail was pretty rough, until we hit one section, and I think, I actually don't even know what happened, but I heard a big pop and got to a point, stopped, went underneath and looked, and had totally blown my sway bar linkage. So the group was super good. They got in there, got the sway bar disconnected. I was able to drive down, found a mechanic shop in Moab called MechanicsNow. They got me in that night, got the CV replaced, and I was back on the trail the next day. So if you've been planning a trip to Moab, I highly recommend you get out there. It's amazing. You're going to have a blast. If you're into the Jeep trails, there's plenty of challenging opportunity for you. And if you're really just kind of a trail hunter, you know, and you want to go hike and explore, then there's lots of opportunity for you to do that. So hopefully we'll be back to Moab the end of the year, first of next year, and I look forward to seeing you guys down the trail.